So with that, let's go ahead and see what Ken has to say. He's going to take us into some extended holiday spirit that has to do with more pork.
Oink.
He's
Thank
got
you,
that
Mark.
one too.
I'm going to talk about oink in a little bit here, Hugh. Just hold on, okay?
He's not kidding.
We have Zhongpin, ticker HOGS, and I made a pretty complete presentation last month. In fact, if you'd like to see that presentation, our producer, Dan Hornack, has put some of these presentations up on the Facebook site, so you can go over there and click on it and see some of the slides I put together. Actually, I cribbed them from some presentations that Zhongpin had put together, but you can get some of the facts and figures about Zhongpin, and nothing basically has changed in the company. So I decided to do a little bit of musing with my 8 or 9 minutes today on my relationship with pork and with the new year. You see the fireworks background here, and it's amazing that my Chinese friends love to do fireworks in their New Year's, and fireworks were always a tradition in my Slovak family also at the New Year. Even when they weren't legal, they were a big tradition, and we sought them out and did everything we could to make them go as high in the sky as we possibly could. I mentioned Slovakia, and most people don't even have any idea where it is. A lot of people put it down in the Aegean Sea. Folks, that's Slovenia down there, close to Italy. Slovakia is up, and it's half of what we used to call Czechoslovakia when we were growing up in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and however old some of you are. My family. And there's a map of Europe right there with Slovakia kind of circled. Notice that Slovakia is kind of nestled up between Poland and the Ukraine and Hungary. It's a very, very small little country, and my family comes from a little village up in the Carpathian Mountains called Bardejov. My great-grandfather was married there, and he raised a family of 11 children. All of them came to the United States except for the oldest daughter. I still have cousins left in Przezov, and Natalie and I hosted an exchange student from Hamane, and Hamane is over to the east of Przezov right there. There are still lots of kavulas left in this little section of Slovakia, and one of these days I'm going to go over there and visit. What I enjoyed about Slovakia, and there's their flag, by the way, just to give you an idea, the red, white, and blue, that is a cross, a Christian cross, but it's an Orthodox Christian cross. A lot of the population in Slovakia, including my grandparents, were Orthodox Christians rather than Roman Catholic. So it's even appearing on the national flag. Here are some of the beauties from Slovakia. My grandmother was just about this age of these young girls when she came to this country at the age of 14. And this dress, or this style of dress, she carefully had one packed up in a box, and we still have the hand-embroidered dress even to this day, sitting in the attic gathering dust, which you take out and take a look at every now and then, show the granddaughters. You couldn't have a celebration, including a New Year's celebration in a Slovak family, without poppy seeds. This is the poppy seed roll that my grandmother made for every important event. It's wonderful. Natalie and I made it this year for the first time since my mom passed away a couple of years ago, and it was wonderful. And we'll continue making it and teaching our grandkids how to do it. But the prime star of the meal in a Slovak dinner is always sausage. I've been making handmade sausage with my dad and my grandmother since I can remember, and sausage is always filled, as most of you know, with lots of pork and lots of fat, for that matter. There is my grandmother. She's just about the age in this picture that I am today. She's 62 in this picture. That's my dad, and that young fashion plate right there is me sometime around the age of 4. Notice the two-tone shoes and the matching ensemble.
Look at
I was
hair.
always dressed to kill. There's hair on that head, right? So, but my grandmother was a typical Slovak. She never really did learn to speak English. I was the very first grandchild in the family, and I was the very first to attend college from the family. And that was just something that made her extremely, extremely happy. Raised and born in Cleveland, which has a huge Slovak population, for that matter, has also a big Czech population, a big Hungarian population, a big Slavic population altogether. Cleveland does have a skyline. The river is not burning in this picture here, so you can all take a look at Cleveland. And here's the rest of the things that go into a Slovak dinner. Those are pierogi, and I know that a lot of you do pierogi if you're Polish. Slovak pierogi aren't fried, however. They're boiled and then dressed with butter and breadcrumbs. They're filled with all kinds of different things inside. It's always a surprise to eat them. And you eat them on New Year's Eve, you eat them on Christmas Eve, and you eat them whenever the women of the household had enough time to make them. Take a long time to make, but they're just wonderful. The other staple of the meal is called pagach, although in my part of Slovakia it was called adzimka, and it's flat bread filled with potatoes and cheese, or filled with sauerkraut, or filled with cabbage. Let's face it, folks, if you're Slovak, you don't get away without eating cabbage at every single meal. I think we have some kind of a tie to the Irish in that regard, Hugh. But you're going to find cabbage somewhere in the meal if you look hard enough. Cabbage and potatoes the whole way through. And here we are going to the market, and I challenge any of you to tell me which one of these is a Slovak market and which one of these is a Chinese meat market. They're both filled with pork products to the extent that there's almost no other kind of meat in the butcher shop. The meat kind of hangs there. Fresh meat and cured meat, as it does in Slovakia and as it does in China. This picture in the upper left-hand corner is actually the Slovak meat market, and the other two pictures are actually Zhongpin pictures of pork products coming from China. Zhongpin is the country I introduced to you folks last month. I differ with Sai a little bit. He's looking right now for large, very stable companies. I found in the last couple of recessions that I can continue my style of investing, which is to look for large, medium, and small companies. I just have to focus extremely hard on quality. And I found during the Great Recession, for example, that some of my best performing stocks were actually small companies of very, very high quality. So I'm not worried too much about staying with the bigger blue chips. I'm still looking for small companies, but I'm insisting that the lines be up straight and parallel and that they have very, very high quality ratings. The quote that I want to bring forward from last month is up here in the upper left-hand corner. 65% of the meat that's eaten in China is pork. And this percentage of pork eaten just in China amounts to more than 50% of the entire supply of pork in the world. So Chinese eat pork, and we're going to need people to process that pork. And Zhongpin, I feel, is situated to be among the companies that will benefit from this particular fact. Notice a pretty high quality rating from Manifest, up around 70. A par that's gone down a little bit since I presented it a month ago. Remember, when par goes down and nothing else changes, that means the price of the stock has gone up. I actually do own this small companies. I want to let you know that. It closed at $19.11 on the day of the last roundtable, and this evening it closed at $20.84. So we had a nice run-up in the price over the last month. And as far as I'm concerned, when you buy a small stock and nothing else happens and you get a nice run-up, and it's still in the buy range, it's still a stock you'd like to have in your portfolio, I'm not adverse to doubling down on it, to buying another holding, another amount of the stock, whatever it happens to be. My first purchase in this stock was a pretty small foray into the Chinese stock. Remember, I told you that I was using it to learn from, so I'm trying to make sure that I learn everything I can about this stock. The second time through, I feel I'm a little bit more understanding of how the company operates and what's going on in China with their inflation. Inflation actually is going to be good for some of these food producers that are going to be able to pass some of these prices right through to the consumers. So my recommendation is to add to my Zhongpin holding. And I think that leaves us just enough time for Mark to talk about what events are on the horizon and to have us challenge one of the stocks that's in the portfolio right now. Go ahead, Mark.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ken. This is just a quick note to remind everybody that we have a dashboard diagnostic session coming up in a couple of weeks, Thursday the 13th at the same time and place. And then the Challenge Club will meet the Tuesday after that on January 18th, the Challenge Club. And we have tentatively slated, that's not a Thursday, it's actually a Saturday, January 29th for an 11 o'clock Saturday morning session of the Roundtable during January. And we'll have those all up and posted and links and all that stuff. That will be coming up pretty close to Groundhog Day, so we'll certainly be celebrating groundhogs. So we actually have 2 or 3 minutes left. I would like to take and have our first challenge situation. I'm just going to briefly describe it, and then my 3 colleagues basically give it an up or down vote, yes or no. And what I'd like to propose is that Ken has pulled up the roundtable, or the dashboard. What I would like to propose is that we have Strayer Education as a repeat selection. The second time we picked it, it actually went up from $126 to $139 on the day of selection a couple of months ago. It has now gone up to $157. I still love the company. I still believe that they're strong. But what I'd like to do is it's kind of like a situation where you're walking on eggshells a little bit. I would like us to sell half of that position, basically closing out the position we opened in October, and sell it just to reduce this to a normal size position, not a double. So with that, I'll ask Cy, Hugh, and Ken for their comments. And what do you guys think? Should we reduce that position in Strayer Education?
I'll give you a great big yes, Mark, because any stock that's worried about what's happening with the government, especially with the government changing again right now, worries me a little. So I'll give you a great big yes.
Okay, and in a true American Idol fashion, Hugh, do you have any thoughts on it?
I just want these prices are from when?
Well, these prices that you're showing here are actually from last month's meeting. In fact, Ken, if you want to table it, take us back. This
is now what, over $2,000? I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, they're all up over 1,000. Yeah, and 2,000 in that case.
Yeah, no, I concur. I think it's. I just hate selling. I just have a visceral reaction each time it comes up. Want to make a big elaborate deal out of the thing, but I hear what you're saying. It makes sense. Yeah, okay. It's 2109 now.
And I guess Cy is our Simon Cowell.
Well, apparently, since I'm outvoted, my opinion means nothing, so I can either play politician and pontificate to the contrary, knowing that I'm outvoted and you're going to do it anyway, but actually I will be.
Lame duck.
I will be a little bit on the opposite side.
Sure.
Kind of like Hugh. My gut just tells me the Strayer buys were made with essentially the same knowledge of the government uncertainty and everything that's going forward as we're facing today. Unfortunately, nothing's really cleared up in the last 2 to 4 to 5 months, but that's not unusual when the government's involved either. So, the patient investor in me says since nothing as far as true knowledge or true lack of knowledge has changed, I think it's pulling the plug a little bit. 10% of a portfolio, reducing it to 5, to me is not that significant a change. So, I mean, that's my view. On the other hand, I personally have considered buying Strayer, and because of the uncertainty, haven't bought it. So, you know, on the personal level, I'm not quite ready to take that leap. But on the other hand, if I were holding it, I don't believe I personally would be selling it.
Well, I hear you completely, and you know, one of the reasons that we actually threw this out there is, again, to demonstrate a process as much as anything. But I hear you, and that's why I didn't recommend selling it. Very, very rarely for me do I get on the horse in the middle of the stream, or whatever analogy you want to use. But I think this is a case where it might make some sense, and might be interesting just to look back and see what this looks like in a few months too. And we're not getting rid of it completely. All right, so that will pass 2 to 1.
Mark, I did promise you an oink before the time was over, and for those of you that are listening, I discovered another Chinese stock with the ticker OINK, O-I-N-K.
You just can't help yourself.
They're a pork producer, not a pork processor. It's Tianli, Tianli. They only have a year or so of history. I'm not even recommending that you study it because there's just not enough to really look at. But I just thought you'd all like to know that in addition to hogs in China, they also have an oink to go with it.
Yeah, in fact, there's no forecast either, so it's kind of tough to follow. All right, so let's go ahead and close down the official part of the meeting and just kind of open the floor up for any questions and answers. We did end this session at approximately 60 minutes. Anybody out there have any questions or comments on tonight's session?